Welcome, everybody. If you have questions about taking a break from a medication, in this particular video, a medication in regards to ADHD, this is your video. It's a very common question. People want to know the answer. These are 12 questions to guide you as you consider taking a medication break. Let's get into it. So there are lots of medications that you can take. We, of course, know that. But in this video, we're specifically talking about ADHD. Is it safe to stop these medications for a summer, for a holiday, for a weekend? And if so, what questions should you consider? Now, this is the big concern. Okay, this is the big concern that people have. It's right here. The primary concern that people have is that their life is going to turn into Lord of the Flies. Like, look at this guy. Right. On one side of the equation, you got a kid who's listening and got an apple and a book and he's got his hair combed. And on the other side, right, the kid in this example, somebody who maybe discontinues an ADHD medication, right? There's so many folks, there's so many of us who believe that if you discontinue a medication, you go from the kid with the book to the kid with the spear. And what I want to challenge in our time today is that, yes, there's some step off. Yes, there's some difficulty in focus and attention and sitting and listening, of course. But if anything in this video can lead you to a place where you take a break, either for yourself or for your child, from an ADHD medicine, from a pharmacotherapy that manipulates the neurochemistry of the brain, if you can take a break, then we're winning. Now, please understand, as we get started, my goal is not to dissuade you from taking an ADHD medication. I've taken these medications, I prescribe these medications, and they are absolutely fantastic for those individuals who are truly impaired. But it's very important as we go through these steps together that we give ourselves an opportunity to ask ourselves, hey, is this necessary? Do I need to continue this? Can I take a break? What I hope to convince you of today is yes, you can. Here are the 12 questions to guide you. Number one, the first question that we have to consider as you think about what it is we're doing with a discontinuation of a medication or a medication holiday is, what is the goal? What's your goal? Okay. Is your goal to have freedom? Is it to have freedom from medication? Then by all means, this information may prove useful for you. If your goal is to use the least amount of medication possible to get the most amount of benefit, then we share a common goal, and that is to exercise and experience freedom. Freedom from the use of a medication. And I can't say this enough times. I'll say it a lot of times during our time together. I'm not against the use of these medications. I've been on them and I prescribe them. But if freedom is our shared goal as we start this, we have to understand that there are times when your medications are extremely beneficial. Please understand that we treat impairment. We treat impairment, not annoyance. Okay, I'm going to say some offensive stuff. Don't throw a beer can at the computer screen because it's your computer screen. Kids, as much as I love them, and I've said it in other live streams, I love them. They're fantastic. I'm a pediatrician. I'm a big fan of kids. But kids in general can be a bit annoying. They can be frustrating. Okay, that does not mean that they require a medication to treat their annoyance. But if your goal is freedom from a medication, then we must start a dialogue about when a child is impaired and when a child is just being annoying. Impairment is oftentimes most obvious in the classroom setting. I'm under the fluorescent lights. Okay. I'm sitting there, I'm listening, I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do. You know, I'm this kid in the pink side. I'm doing all the right stuff. I'm being a good guy, being a good soldier. But I can't sit, I can't listen, I can't focus, I can't obtain the information and retain it in order to demonstrate mastery. And I struggle. Okay. If your goal is freedom, you have to begin to think about, am I treating impairment, which is a time when, of course, a medication is useful, or am I treating annoyance? And if it's annoyance, then perhaps the medication is not for you or your child at all. But if freedom's the goal, please take this as an opportunity and an invitation to take a break from the use of a medication. And we'll talk later about this, but know that discontinuing a medication as it relates to ADHD. So traditionally, what I mean by that is stimulant medications, Concerta, Adderall, Vyvanse, and these medications can be discontinued. Now, you want to do this under the care and guidance of your primary care provider, the prescribing provider, but you can walk away from the use of these medications. And I hear what you're saying, but Noble, you don't understand how bad my life is and how bad things can be. Okay. Well, if you're impaired, by all means continue. But if in your child's case, if you feel like you're mostly just treating annoyance, then maybe a break is worth it, or potentially you discontinue completely. Okay, let's talk about the next point I want to make. What is happening over this break? Remember the point of the video, okay? And again, if you have questions or comments, put them in the comment section and I'll put them up on the screen and we'll talk about them. If you're watching this on the upload, put them in the comments. I'll read them and do my best to get back to you. Okay. So just know that we'll do our best to get back to you on this. But the question that we have to answer now is what's happening over break? If you're thinking about taking a medication break from an ADHD strategy, the better question is, what are you going to be doing over this break? Let's look at these photos. Okay. Now listen, if your kids are swimming in pools, and they're sliding in grass in their underwear, or they got these kids in these canoes in the bottom, or this kid on the tricycle in the bottom right, maybe I could make a strong argument to you that while they could certainly benefit to some extent from focus and attention on a medication, if the break is summer or the break is Christmas or the break is a weekend, the question I need you to ask yourself is, what is it that I'm inviting my child to do or requiring them to do that requires, in turn, the manipulation of the neurochemistry of their brain? Now, look at the middle of this slide. Okay, let's look at the middle of this slide. You got a kid in a classroom. You got a kid on a baseball field. Okay, now, again, I'm in the business of trying to liberate people as best I can from fear, guilt, and shame. Okay. I want no fear, no guilt, and no shame for any of you. So if you're on a medicine or your kid's on a medicine, you are not to feel bad about it. Okay. This is to help you figure out a way to be free of feeling like you have to take this medication. Okay. But I also want to free you from the obligation of feeling like every break, every free moment, every time you have with your child should be therapeutic in nature. I'm going to challenge that. And I'm going to say, no, thank you, please. Does your child, do some of the kids, some of the families watching this and children that you care for, do they need interventions? Do they need speech and OT and PT and some maybe a tutor or what it is in this for this gal in the top middle here? Yeah, some of these kids need these interventions, but it's important for you to know that, okay, well, maybe you need a medicine because they're doing these important interventions. My point with this slide, my point here is when we think about what we're doing over these breaks is, do you really need to be doing those things though? Like, I want your kids playing in water and in canoes and doing fun things. Sometimes they need to spend some time in a summer school program. Sometimes you need to be working on phonics or whatever you're doing. I get it. But do you need a medication during breaks to help kids be successful at those things? Some of you, the answer is yes. Okay. But some of you, I want to encourage you to just take a step back. Maybe, just maybe, you don't need to do aggressive tutoring over the summer and on the weekends to get your kid up to where you think they need to be. That's not to say those aren't important things. Okay. It's not to say that being on a travel baseball team and spending thousands of dollars a semester to go into a Holiday Inn in Kansas City and sit by a pool with people that you don't like, and go to baseball games. I mean, I can think of worse things, but not many that are worse than that for me personally. For you, maybe it's liberating, maybe it's life, maybe you're thinking, well, we can't go off of medicine, Noble, because we do tutoring all summer long, or we do competitive baseball and we can't have the coach being angry at us because Johnny's off of his Concerta. Well, remember what I'm asking, when I'm inviting us to, okay, remember, we treat impairment, not annoyance. Okay. If Johnny's annoying to the baseball coach, okay, maybe that's a baseball team he doesn't need to be on. And I know how that sounds. And I know you've paid thousands of dollars. And I know you've got a Holiday Inn booked 6 months from now to sit by a pool and drink Trulias. I get it. But that, I'm telling you, there may be a better way. If you feel like you need to treat a child to plug into the therapeutic interventions that are represented in the middle of the slide, I want to give you permission to push back against this belief that every free moment, every break, every time off, every time away from school needs to be optimize in order to ensure your child meets their fullest potential. There are other ways to do that by being present and available to them, by taking them fishing, by learning to ride a bike, by crafting something out of wood and then throwing it against a wall. Those are also very important and useful things. I want your kids to get the interventions that they need, but I want you to ask yourself, do we really need to use a medication over a break to help my child overcome their impairment when they're engaging in tasks that maybe, just maybe, they don't need to engage in all summer long? Okay. So that's the second point I wanted to make to you, is what are they doing over the break? What are they doing over the break? And do they need to be doing those things? Do those things require the use of a medication? And if you feel that they do, maybe another question is, do they really need to be doing that? Is that really necessary this summer? Okay. So let's talk about our next point. How bad are the side effects? Okay. How bad are the side effects? Because one of the many benefits of discontinuing an ADHD medicine for yourself or for your child is that the side effects dissipate. They go away. Now, so do the effects. Okay. So that means that, yeah, hyperactive, impulsive, and attentive features, some dysregulation of mood, all those things are going to come back and it's going to be a problem for you. But if the side effects are terrible, how beneficial could it be to take a break from them, right? Now, if you got a child like this child under the covers here, I mean, this is an example, obviously, to demonstrate that kids with ADHD medicines, they don't sleep well. I've got so many kids that are using a medication to overcome an impairment so they can be successful in their school day or to be kept safe. And that leads to some difficulties falling asleep. And taking a medication break can be really helpful. So if you're on the fence about taking a break from medications, how bad are these side effects? And know that if they're bad, they can go away. Maybe it's weight loss. The scale is what this is meant to demonstrate. Some kids, you just are fighting. Oh, they were already picky. They were already selective in their dietary. They were selective in what their palate would accept, right? And then you put them on an ADHD medication, which is beneficial. And it's, again, that can be really useful for them, but they eat less than they did before. They eat less macaroni and cheese than they did before. And now you got a kid who can't keep their weight on, and it's a break. It's summer, it's Labor Day, it's Christmas time, whatever it is. The question I want you to ask yourself is, how bad are these side effects, and how wouldn't it be so nice to see them go away? How about the rage fests? Look at this kid in the bottom with the denim shirt. This kid's had it. He's got this glorious comb over. This kid's had it. Right? When the medications wear off, you know this from school. When the medications wear off, right, at the end of the day, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, depending on which medicine and the way your kid responds to it, it's like the wheels just come off. It's like the landing gear won't come down and the plane just slams into the tarmac. And then it slides up to the gate on fire, okay? And then we call that quality family time. All right. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you discontinued a medication to not have to deal with that? Wouldn't it be nice to just get rid of it? So the point I'm making here is, how bad are the side effects as compared to the effects? Yes, the medication should be effective if you're taking them, but sometimes the effects or the juice is not worth the squeeze. And over a break, when hopefully expectations are lowered, there's less structured time, you could pull away from a medication, give your child a chance to breathe, give their neurochemistry a chance to kind of recuperate to some extent, and get back on their own 2 feet so that they can, move forward and make the necessary strides and learn to kind of normalize themselves. So how bad are the side effects? Okay. And would you like to see them go away? All right, let's look at the next one. What is the baseline of your child now? Okay, let's talk about this. When your child was put on a medication, when you were put on a medication, okay, maybe you were going through a divorce. Maybe you just started a new job. Maybe you took a job in a circus as a juggler or of chainsaws, and focus and attention was in your best interests. Okay, let's just say that's you. Maybe when your child was going from 3rd to 4th grade, when they're going from learning to read, kind of to reading to learn, right? And the stakes kind of go up, or it's the end of kindergarten and they still don't have that 75 to 100 sight words and they're just struggling. Maybe the stakes were higher then, and maybe it made more sense, right? The baseline was different. But now where's the baseline? Where is the baseline? Listen, things change. Things change. The baseline changes. Kids grow. Your job changes. You recuperate. You heal. You stop juggling chainsaws. You start juggling tennis balls, right? Things change for your child. Things change for you. Discontinuing of a medication, taking an ADHD medication, vacation, okay, not only gives you a break from side effects, but it also allows you to establish a new baseline. Wouldn't it be nice to know, after you've taken a medication break and your new baseline has been established, wouldn't it be nice to know going into this next season of life for the next school year for your child that maybe, just maybe, they could try it without a medication? I mean, I tell families this often. If the door is cracked even just a little bit, to invite families to experiment with removing the medication from their life. Listen, we're not against medications, but zero medications are best. When they're needed, we use them. I've used them and I prescribe them. I'm on your team. But it's important also to challenge the system by reassessing the new baseline that exists, by discontinuing the medication. And don't come to a conclusion about the new baseline after 2 days. Because here's what you'll do. You'll stop the medicine. I watched the doctor on YouTube live and blah, blah, blah. And I stopped the medicines and I talked to my regular doctor and we worked together and we stopped the medicines. And Johnny is going bonkers, right? It's like that first slide I showed you where the kid's holding the staff and the spear and looks like a wild man. It's like that. Okay, you're like, well, I can't possibly do this. This is nuts. This is a major mistake. It's because you're picking the wrong moment to reassess the new baseline. Okay, think about it like this: when you discontinue the medication, it's almost like from a focus and attention, from an executive functioning standpoint, it's almost like you go underwater. I know this because I was on these medicines and I stopped them. Okay, you go under the water. For 7 to 10 days, you're just like, where am I? And what is reality? And how is Darth Vader really that guy's father? What is this? Like, and then you jump out of the pool and you land and you kind of catch your breath. Okay. For 5 to 7 days later, and you establish your new baseline, but it takes your brain a while to kind of get back online. So don't come to a conclusion about whether or not coming off a medication is a good idea after 48 hours during a competitive baseball tournament, when you're surrounded by people you don't know, with kids who play 6 instruments and are going to go to Juilliard. Don't compare yourself to those kids. That person over there is fantastic, but they grow a garden. They wear denim clothes, which is awesome, and they read books by the fireplace. That's not you. Okay, if you're like my house, it's like bare knuckle. It's like you're just trying to survive. All right. So don't come to conclusions about the new baseline 2 days after you stopped the medicine. Give yourself some time. Burn the ships. Say, I'm not doing this for a month. We're just not doing it. Okay. Or for 2 weeks, but you got to give it more than 2 days. All right. How effective, the next question I have for you, how effective are the medications? How effective are they really? Okay. Because oftentimes people will say, I don't want to quit the medications because, I don't want to take a break because the summer will be bad or the holiday will be bad or whatever, because I don't want this. I can't have this. Right. And then I say, okay, well, so the medicines must be working pretty well then, huh? I mean, you never have the kid covered in animal skins with the staff and the blacked out eyes. You never have that guy. And they're like, oh, no, I have that guy all the time. And I say, interesting. So you're telling me you take a medicine, you deal with the side effects, you manipulate the neurochemistry of the brain for what? For 1% improvement? Maybe 2. Now, okay, let's be fair. These medications are very, very effective. Okay, they work fantastic. But sometimes kids don't respond quite as well to them as we would like, and the doses are going up and the side effects are going up. We're not sleeping and we're losing weight and all the things. And summer comes, you're like, well, I can't stop this medicine because, it's going to get terrible. And I say, hey, listen, my friend, you cannot fall off the floor. Okay. If the reality of your life, even on a medicine, is the kid in the green with the bearskin suit on, if that's your reality, discontinuing a medication is not going to make it worse. I promise. Are things going to get a little bit more dicey for 7 to 10 days? Sure. But at the end of the day, right, after you discontinue these medications, if you're off a medicine and it's still chaotic, you're winning. You're winning. You are ahead, right? You've still got chaos. You still got struggle. You still got strife. You still got issues with focus and attention. But you're not on a medicine. So you got all those issues without any of the side effects. And so in a sense, you're winning. So if you are on a medication and you really think that, yeah, it's got some good benefits, but I mean, it's not that extravagantly good, let me give you permission to talk to your primary care provider and get off of this medicine is to take a break. Okay, Dennis has got a question. Dennis, it's good to hear from you, my friend. Now, listen, I'm going to have to follow up with you on this, my man. I don't know what that is. I don't want to waste your time Googling it. It sounds like it was dicey. Usually you can tell by the wording and how it's phrased, you can kind of figure out what medication class it's in. I don't know exactly what that is. So let me think about it, my man. I'll come back to it if I may have to come up in future streams, but thank you for the question. Okay. So let's talk about this one. Next, is there an emerging tolerance? Is there an emerging tolerance? Are you on a slow? Oh, here we go. Dennis is following up to me. He says it's a pharmaceutical methamphetamine. Boy, I don't know. I mean, methamphetamines, there's two kinds for those of you who are just tuning in. There's two kinds in general of stimulant medications. Okay. There's methylphenidates. Okay. So a methamphetamine, it would seem to me to be different. And there's methylphenidate. So that's like Ritalin, Concerta. And then there's the amphetamine group. So that's like Adderall, Vyvanse. Okay. But when you think about a methamphetamine, obviously that rings bells. I mean, we're thinking about Breaking Bad here. We're thinking about like methamphetamines, like, the illegal substance. So Dennis, I can't speak to it. I know that from my perspective, I'm not aware of any pharmaceutical interventions that are prescribed that would be considered methamphetamines. Not to say that that's not true, but just in my practice, I don't prescribe anything that it's either a methylphenidate or an amphetamine, but it's never both. So it could be that it was a little bit too close to the street version of meth, and maybe that's what it was. But I don't know that I've ever seen it used in ADHD treatment stateside. So sorry, my man. I wish I was smarter for you. Okay, is there an emerging tolerance? Is there an emerging tolerance? Let's talk about this, okay? So here's what an emerging tolerance scenario looks like. You're on a death march of a dosage increase. I mean, it's okay. It's getting towards the end of the school year, and all we're doing is kind of slowly hammering up on the dose to try and get minimal benefits. The effects are waning, right? So you're on an aggressive dose, and we can talk about what that means another time, but you're on an aggressive dose, and it's still just not really as beneficial as it once was. The side effects are waning. So it's not even that it's not working, but you're really not getting any side effects anymore. Now, I don't want side effects for anybody. I don't want side effects for anybody. But when you have no effects and no side effects, the likelihood that you're kind of, I don't want to say habituating, because it's not really typical for your body to habituate or get used to an ADHD medication. But I do think personally, there's good, I don't want to say anecdotal evidence that when I would stop a medicine for a period of time and then restart it, it would often prove to be more beneficial for me when I give myself a pharmacologic break. I can't cite any literature in that regard, just that's personal experience, and certainly from our clinic. Or you're developing a kind of tolerance in a sense if you skipped a dose and it didn't matter. I mean, that's one of my favorite questions. Families will say, this isn't working, nothing's working. And I'll say, interesting. You ever skip a dose because you forgot or by accident? And they're like, oh yeah, we did. What happened at school? Oh, it was a total disaster. They called me right away. So then I lean back in my chair and I go, so maybe it is working then, just a little bit, right? But if you skip a dose and it doesn't matter at all, right? It's possible that your child's just kind of growing into the dose and maybe a different strategy is needed. But it's also possible that you could crack the door on a medication break, and the child from a performance standpoint probably wouldn't miss it that much. And that is a beautiful thing, my friends. That is a beautiful thing, to get off of a medication and realize, I guess I didn't really need that at all. It wasn't that useful to me, or it was for a period of time, and that time is come and gone. Okay, let's talk about this one. How are your coping skills? Okay, now remember, if you're trying to come off of a medicine and you're thinking about, is this right for me? Is this a good fit? Should I do this? How do I feel about this? I want to ask you a hard question, okay? This is maybe for more of the adults in the crowd, but also think about it for your kids. How are your coping strategies progressing? Are you learning systems to better navigate your difficulties with executive function skills, planning ahead, organizing your day, routines, systems that will allow you to make less mistakes, to live without as many problems. Because oftentimes what happens is this, okay? And this, I can only speak for myself. I'm not trying to be mean, but you can make progress or you can make excuses. For me, I'm not saying this is you, but for me, it was really easy to fall into this idea that if I wasn't on track or I wasn't fully attentive or I wasn't present or I didn't follow through, right? I didn't have the big idea or I wasn't all in, it was a medication problem, right? It couldn't possibly be the fact that I slept 4 hours and I don't exercise and I was eating terrible foods and I wasn't taking care of myself in any way. I had no effective systems, no strategies to gather new information or nothing. But somehow I refused to embrace the responsibility of developing coping mechanisms. Now, it's not just for adults. Your kids need to learn that medications can help you focus on and attend to task on the things that are present for them to do. But it's not meant to circumnavigate the importance of developing systems and coping strategies so that they can stand on their own 2 feet without relying on pharmacologic interventions. Some people need it their whole life. This is not a slight or a critique on that at all. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Your children need to learn to develop effective coping strategies to deal with their life, because medications are not going to are not going to seal all the cracks that are going to come up as your children or you get busier. So give yourself the opportunity by taking a break and working on some coping strategies. Coping strategies plus medication is a powerful intervention. Medications alone is going to run out of gas sooner than you think. Are you short on time or money? Oh, okay. The answer is yes. Okay. This is everybody, right? I mean, I get it. I'm not trying to make light of it, but are you short on time or money? These things, I guess we'll have a virtual raising of the hands. How many of you have waited in line or gone to a pharmacy to pick up a script that wasn't there? Not because it wasn't sent, but because Concerta or Vyvanse or Adderall or whatever it was in your neck of the woods doesn't exist. I mean, it just all of a sudden does not exist. And so then you have to go to another pharmacy. And Walgreens is like, well, no, I guess I got one across town. So now you're on some kind of, you know what you're on? I got this slide's not going to show up the way I wanted it to. But so now you're on some kind of scavenger hunt. Okay. You're on some kind of scavenger hunt and you're traveling around town and you're looking for all the things. And now you're going to a Walgreens and you're in another pharmacy and then you're spending $20 per copay. And here's the truth. If you took $20, okay, and you put it in the market at 8% return compounded interest over 20 years, you'd have $11,500. That's just simple math. That's all that is. That's not to say that if it's useful and it's important for you as a family, then it's worth it. But I want to free you from the idea that just because somebody says we're going to prescribe this and you need to take it, you have permission to ask deeper questions. Do I really need to do this? Over the summer, do I need to drive around to 8 Walgreens and pay $20 a pop for pills that don't really work and give a bunch of side effects? And I feel like I'm just treating the annoyance of a baseball coach or the taekwondo instructor. Like, please think about this. Drill down deep. How about some extra time and money? Give yourself a break. You're going to spend less time in Walgreens. You're going to spend less money on copays. All right, let's go. How about this? Are there other ways? Are there other ways to effectively address and navigate ADHD that are not medications? This is one of my favorite questions, and I'm still learning about this. I kind of want to go do extra training and just like some of the natural interventions because I think they're just so wonderful. But look at this. There's a lot of things that you can do that's, I know you know this stuff, but let me just go through it. Right. Okay. Exercise. Let's just talk about the top left. There is so much good data to demonstrate that if you get up and jump around, even if you jump in jacks for 5 minutes, which is a lot of jumping jacks. Okay. You do jumping jacks right before you sit down and you do some heavy lifting or some work or some cognitive stuff like emails or whatever. The likelihood you're going to be able to retain attention and focus on that task is much higher. Just getting the blood flowing. You got one of those treadmills that go onto your desk and you walk on those. I mean, ask people how those work. Yeah, there's times they're distracting, but there's times when they're fantastic, right? Exercise. Don't minimize the importance of it. How about a diet rich in omega-3s? How about a diet rich in omega-3 vitamins? So this is the fish oil stuff. And again, the data is kind of mixed, but in general, there is a positive benefit to eating a diet or a Mediterranean diet that is higher in omega-3s. Omega-6s are more like the Western diet. So think about high in saturated fats. And the omega-6s are kind of interesting because they're a precursor to inflammatory markers, which have certainly, there's a lot of language around inflammation and things like that. I'm not an expert in that, but I certainly thought that was interesting. So omega-3s, right? So Mediterranean diets. How about computer programs? I know this sounds weird, but hear me out. There's computer programs now, several of them. They're a Google away. You just Google ADHD computer programs, and they help train the brain to focus and attend to tasks by going through different kind of cognitive exercises or just being a part of a team, right? Being a part of a team and the discipline and the importance of listening to instructions and following through on routines and just the social constraints of wanting to be present and available so you don't let your teammates down and you learn to be a good teammate. And then certainly don't forget about school supports, IEP supports. Work with the school to optimize the academic environment before you pull the lever of pharmacotherapy on a child. Get that IEP going, or a 504, which is kind of a step down version of an IEP. I've got some videos on the differences between those interventions. I can link those in the description below, but those are some good things to think about. Okay. We're getting towards the end of our time. So if you have questions, okay, put them in here and we will talk about it. Look at this. I get a little ticker. Like and subscribe if this is useful to you. It helps us get this stuff to a lot of people. So please, if you have the time, give us a shout out. Can you change how you give it? Can you change how you give it? Let's talk about this. This is important. And here's what I mean by can you change how you give it? If you're going to stay on a medicine, over a break, over the weekends, over the long break, if you're going to stay on a medicine, like the things I've said to you, you're like, yeah, that's not really me. There's a lot of impairment here. My child feels dangerous. They're going to get hurt. They're in a situation where they really need a lot of focus. They're doing a lot of summer schooling and things like that. Then, okay, fine. But then I want you to ask a question of, can you change how you give it? Can you decrease the dose? Can you decrease the dose over times when the sum total need of focus and attention is decreased? So there's less structured time. There's less sitting and listening. Now it exists, but let's say it's, a fraction of the day. It's just a couple hours in the morning during oboe lessons or private tutoring or whatever it is. You could potentially decrease the dose, or you could use a short-acting medicine. Here's what I mean. If you're on a long-acting medicine, you take it once daily in the morning, it lasts all day. It's like 10 to 12 hours, and it's just kind of this long pop fly into the outfield. It's kind of like a home run, right? If you do short-acting medicines, they're kind of like pop flies in the infield. So one goes up to second base, and then the other one maybe goes up to maybe midfield. And it's just like you just pop it up from 8 to noon, and then boom, they do another one from like noon to 3. And the thing about short-acting medicines is that it's just that. They're short-acting. You take them when you need them. So maybe you need them at 8, but you don't need them at noon. Or you need them at 8 and noon, but you don't have to treat all day. Maybe you just need them at 10 and 2. Okay? Those are conversations to have with your doctor. But at the end of the day, if you're using a short-acting medicine once, you're still likely on less medicine than a long-acting all-day intervention. And what's our goal? Medication break. And if we can't get a break, totally with it, I get it, then let's do less. Let's go with less medication. Can we change how we take it by decreasing the dose or switching to a short-acting? Number 11 of our 12, number 11, how bad do you want to stop? How bad do you want to do this? Because I find so many families that, again, this isn't really what they're wanting. Okay. They really aren't wanting an ADHD strategy, but they know that there's impairment in certain environments. They know that there's difficulties at school and home and the community. And so they concede to a strategy that involves some medication. That's not your fault. That's not bad. That's not wrong. Okay. It's not. But sometimes you get to a spot where you've been down all the hallways. Okay. You've seen all the different realms of ADHD management. What I tell families is, listen, my job is kind of like a tour guide. Okay. I will take you down the hallways. I'll let you try some doors. I'll advise you on what I would do, and I'll make sure you don't get hurt. That's my goal. But make no mistake, my friends, when you've reached the end of the tour, I will tell you. Okay. Some folks, they'll stay on the tour and they'll stay on the medications, even though they really just don't like the way they make it. They don't like the way that it interferes with their child's personality, or they have some kind of a hang up that they're processing or working through. At the end of the day, if you really, really, really want to be done with an ADHD medicine, listen to me. You can be. Now, will your child be impaired? Yep. 100% they will. Yep. Things will be difficult. You have to push down on the lever of IEP supports and 504s and request certain teachers and do some homeschooling and maybe get a tutor and do a computer program and some omega-3s and some bike riding and all the stuff. I'm not here to try and tell you that it's going to be easy. But at the end of the day, okay, if your connection with your child has improved, listen to me. This is so important. The goal, from my perspective, as a physician counseling families taking care of kids with behavioral and developmental disorders, the primary goal is to maintain connection with your child. Okay. And if you're working hard and you're making progress and you're spending more time with them, and it's a value add, it's a life-giving thing, at the end of the day, even if they're not as sharp as they normally would be in class or on the baseball time, and listen, at the end of the day, if you're off of a medicine, you're still winning. You're still winning. Now, being on a medicine does not mean you're losing. It does not. Okay. But if we can get away from pharmacotherapy, even for a weekend or a month or a summer, you're still winning. Okay. So if you want it bad enough, there's a lot of things in life like this. The path is there. But it's just a question of if you want it bad enough, right? Whether it is something you're striving for vocationally, whether it is something that you want to be more consistent in regards to your parenting, the path is there, but walking it is what I find is so difficult for me personally and for the families. If you want off of these medications for you or your child, listen, you can do it. You can do it. It might not be pretty and it might not feel good, but I promise you, you can do it. Okay. Last thing I got to say, I got to say this, seek guidance from your doctor, but here's a little clue. If you got a doctor, okay, if your physician or your provider, whoever it is, the PA, nurse practitioner, doesn't matter. If you have a provider who's unwilling to conceptualize a path off of ADHD medicines for you or for children, and they can't give you an adequate reason. Maybe they're not doing it because you're dangerous or you've been stable for a really long time and your baseline is not healthy. Okay, those are extenuating circumstances. But if they just say, well, this is effective and blah, 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 we just blah, 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 then you got to find a new doctor. You got to find somebody whose goal is to restore you to a baseline level of health and wellness. I can't say this enough. I'm not attacking medicines. I prescribe them all day. I think they're wonderful for people. But what's equally as wonderful is seeing people coming off of them, even for a weekend. Okay. So if you got a doctor who's not willing to meet you in the middle and help you conceptualize a way to do that, find a new doctor. Listen, find a new doctor. Okay. That's just the truth of it. All right. If you want to go further and faster with somebody like me, I have a website, drnateNoble.com. It's under construction. It's just put your email in there and then we can stay in touch. Like and subscribe, as I've said, and know that, you got a lot of things you can do on a Friday afternoon. You got a lot of people you could have hung out with, and you chose to spend a little time with me, and I want to thank you for that. Let's stay connected. Let's stay in community, and I promise I will see you in the next video. Now time for some 80s music. It's coming back. All right, if I can get her going, and then we'll see you guys later.